Today for Devotions with Daniella, we are reading from the book of Daniella. This is chapter 8, the end of the world as we know it. We've just found out that our leader has died, and the question always is, what's going to happen then? We learned that Grandpa had died 6 months earlier, but Mama Maria, who would be the family's new unquestioned leader, had decided to wait until the fast to reveal it. It's always Game of Thrones, by the way, when leaders die in cults. Someone in Mama Maria's home received a revelation from God, a vision of Grandpa being taken up to heaven in a chariot, passing down his mantle to Mama Maria. This is a Bible thing from Elijah to Elisha. And also, this, by the way, is called charisma by proxy. He was still the prophet of God. He's now giving it to her. When you hear a group saying we don't have a leader, we can't be a cult, often it's charisma by proxy, or they've changed into a cult of an idea. It also doesn't usually work. Children of God is one of the cases where it worked and it still fell apart about a decade later. The handoff. Okay, so the message was clear. We had a new leader and she had the full backing and total power of the prophet. The vision also explained that all family members had, with Grandpa's passing, received a piece of his gift of prophecy. All adults and even children could begin receiving messages and instructions directly from Jesus. We were all prophets now, I guessed. Starting at that year's feast, change the fast to the feast, Mama Maria revealed the new governing charter of the family. It was the first time in our history that the rules had ever been written down. Never before had there been a clearly defined process for membership, expectations, or guaranteed rights and responsibilities in quite this way. On the surface, the new rules seemed so clear that nobody could argue with the details. And by the way, this is because a judge in London told them they had to write down all these rules that they're saying that they have. Several things impacted us kids. Sitting cross-legged on the floor later that day, after everyone had calmed down, I tried to focus on what Auntie Dora was saying and not fiddle with the dusty pink carpet fibers. She started by outlining the discipline protocols, naming sections and numbers that made all the adults nod carefully. I couldn't figure out what she was talking about and examined the faces of Dorothea, Abigail, and little Mary, but they didn't seem to know either. Then she said the words that got my full attention. If you are older than 6, you can't receive any more than 6 swats as a punishment. It will be even less for children and toddlers. I snuck a glance at the musician corner where all the most popular punishment uncles were, but they all sat there calmly as if they had already heard this before. Clearing her throat, Auntie Dora said, "Your parents have the right to be involved in any discipline you receive, and nobody can deny that." She smiled at us warmly. Isn't Mama Maria so radical? The room nodded. I tried to imagine my meek mother marching up, or always in the spirit, marching up and intervening on an uncle or auntie who was dragging me off to a beating somewhere. It was a nice idea, but I knew it would never happen. And to give my mom so much credit, it did happen with one of my siblings who she marched in and pulled out of a beating. We will no longer be using silence restrictions on the very young children, Auntie Dora continued, and nobody should be hanging signs around your neck anymore. If y'all see me wear a t-shirt that says "Don't talk to me, I'm disrespectful," that was a punishment sign they used to make us wear. I thought of all the times I'd been placed on silence restriction, usually for talking out of turn. We won't be using long periods of isolation. Auntie Dora's voice broke through my reverie. People wonder why I knit all the time. I spent so much time in isolation as a child with absolutely nothing to do that I'm partially terrified of being stuck places without anything to do with my hands. She seemed to look me in the eyes as she said this, and it made me wonder if she knew about Uncle Jerry, that's Jeremy Spencer of Fleetwood Mac, and the things he did when he got me alone. I wondered how many other kids he did it to, wondered how many Uncle Jerrys there were in our communes around the world. Timeouts will cease at 3 hours for older children, 10 years old on down. I wouldn't be gone for days anymore, but 3 hours was still a lot of time. 3 hours felt like 10 when I was alone in a room with nothing but the walls and my own skin to pick at. Auntie Dora explained the new official family position. Children had a right to an education. By the way, these are all things that their members had given up 30 years before, right? None of the kids had been in school. Auntie Dora, okay, all the children had a right to an education. Any kind of traditional learning had always been secondary to physical labor in the communes. But now, regular schooling would become an official requirement, and classroom time would replace previously scheduled work hours. Our homeschooling experiment would become the standard education for every child. I did the math and realized Grandpa had already been dead when we did our testing months earlier. So that had been the plan all along, with our commune serving as guinea pigs. Auntie Dora explained the new labor rules. As she explained them, I thought of all the work we did, from physical labor to childcare, to acting and performing in videos and in the streets, to pounding the pavement, selling those same videos and literature to raise money for the adults who didn't work jobs. I didn't know how our way of life could survive without that, and I didn't believe for a second that any of it would change. They'd find a way around the regulations, they'd have to. Some of the youngest children are going to start going to the doctor, Auntie Dora continued, because Jesus had told Mama Maria that it's important babies and toddlers be treated by systemite doctors. At this, I heard an audible gasp from my friends around the room. But when I looked around, the adults had mostly painted the usual reverent looks back on their faces. All of you will have at least one visit to a doctor and a dentist in the next year. That way, if the police do come here, we will be able to show them your medical records. But we'll still know that Jesus is the one who does our real healing, right? Parroted explanation. My mind floated back to the hospital. I'm going to have to skip some stuff as they're explaining all the new rules. When Auntie Dora continued, she told us the biggest change of all, the rules about sex. Mama Maria feels like some of our ideas about sex have been taken out of context and poorly applied by some bad apples in our homes. My heart seemed to stop beating. Was she going to name him? I knew better than to look at Uncle Jerry directly, but I could see him out of the corner of my eye. The look on his face didn't change a bit. He sat there unconcerned, as if he had no clue he was one of the bad apples Auntie Dora was talking about. Anyone caught having sex with a minor will be excommunicated from the family. Nobody under the age of 16 is to be engaging in full sex, though the junior end-time teens and junior teens will be allowed some sexual touching. She looked straight at our group. That means we don't play games about making love anymore, okay, kids? We all nodded obediently. I didn't understand what I was feeling. In the short time it took Auntie Dora to explain the new rules of the charter, it felt like everything in my life was about to change. And yet, there I was, in the same place, surrounded by the same people. I felt weightless, floating, like someone had lifted a 50-pound bag of rice off my shoulders I hadn't even known was there. But there was something else, a fear that I'd be caught, that hands would reach up and grab me. I only heard good news, but I knew that most of the time, good news still turned out to be too good to be true. As life inside the commune adjusted to the new charter, a dark side emerged that I don't think any family members would have or could have been capable of foreseeing. I celebrated that 6 would be the maximum number of swats any child my age or above could receive. But it quickly became evident that I would always get hit 6 times for any infraction, large or small, whereas in the past, some punishments might have just been a swat or 2. For better or for worse, the rules and regulations that it contained became our gospel truth. The same sentences and rules that codified certain freedoms also gave up others. The charter was the truth, just like the Bible, but that also meant someone in power could always interpret things differently, and their word would always matter more. You can get signed copies of Uncultured attached here, or listen to me read the whole thing to you on Spotify Premium or anywhere else you get your audiobooks.